Alright, and phase 2 of a long day begins. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another under construction stream. I'm your host Ellis, otherwise known as the Admiral. Real quick, I have to... Oh, this should not be maximized. What did I do? What have I done? Let me grab this. Let me double check this looks fine. It does. Let me grab this as per usual, grab this video link, and actually remember to copy it. Put it down in the streaming and recording for the people. I don't want to double dip by putting it in announcements twice, but that was something that I was considering doing for quite some time. Anyway, I am... Do I look like hell? Do I look like I feel like doing this? Because I shouldn't. Lafayette keeps finding new and interesting places to pee in the house, and it's driving me bonkers. So... New patch is out for Trainz 2022. I don't know what that patch is. I don't think I have it, and I'm not concerned about it yet. So, I'm also dealing with allergies, because I am miserable enough, so why don't I just become more miserable? Anyway, we need to get this... Hey Pat, hey Brady, hey Sherry. We need to get this area underway. I don't have any particular goal in mind today because my brain's not working like that. I would like to, I guess, get this area squared away in terms of terraining. We need to go over everything and make sure that it all lines up and makes sense and doesn't have any weird ridges or anything. We're not going to be getting into like the scenery work yet today. But really, I want to have something in the distance here. Some sort of hills in the distance. Like, this is fine. That's fine. The only issue with this is that you can sort of see past it. And I think I can remedy that by doing this. Pat, are you still chasing a train? Are you planning on chasing a train? I know you were out there and you were waiting for something to come. You said the crew van was there. You're out at a town that I don't remember the name of, but it sort of tickled me. Either way, I hope you're having a good time. Update on some other stuff. There are special order trade cards on their way to people right now. The next special order is RGS 20 for my darling love Gloria, who is not here to pester me during this recording, unfortunately. And... of course, I mean pester in the most loving way possible. Yeah, Purcell. Purcell? I'm gonna go with Purcell. Okay, so yeah, we got this done up to here, which we can build track up to here now if we so desire. I didn't decide as to whether I was going to do another copy-paste arrangement of track. We are still going up, I think, right? Because Pan Am is going to be our high point here. But at this point, we can level out and maybe even go down a little bit. And southbound auto rack and a high railer. Well, that's better than nothing. If I go out to the tracks, I don't see any freight trains at all, unless I'm really trying to. I know more or less the schedule of Providence and Worcester, but it is not conducive with my work schedule. If I want to go, like, properly rail fanning, I need to have a day off, or at least a morning off. And it's not like it's hard for me to do that, but it is a sacrifice. It's paid time off that I could be using for other things, like going to Shreveport in October for a horseman meetup, which everyone is invited to. And you can talk to me on Discord if you're interested, and basically, I mean, you can't super be linked in unless you're hobo or above, but if you can petition some other horseman to nominate you, then we can make that happen. But anyway, the meetup Shreveport Columbus Day weekend will be there Saturday and Sunday. Saturday is a fully rail fanning day. Come find us. We'll probably be in either a pop tent or a U-Haul, depending on the weather, on the side of the main somewhere northeast or northwest of whatever. Train beat you by a minute. Me over here in part of the country that lost almost train traffic 12 years ago. Well, yeah, that it do be like that. I'm lucky for Amtrak because I probably wouldn't have much otherwise. Just looking at the massive catastrophe that was Penn Central and knowing that that almost took down like passenger rail in the most important and passenger rail saturated part of the United States. Uh, thank God that didn't happen. Thank God we didn't end up. Thank F40 we didn't end up with no trains. I actually went to Boston today, and I did take the train. So speaking of passenger rail, I almost took a regional home because it might have been more convenient, but I managed to make my MBTA train at 4:25 p.m. C6 plus garbage coal market equals no trains. Yeah, that sounds about right. And I got on this hoping to see some sort of like friends from pre-COVID, but I assume they either work from home or they retired now because they were like a bunch of older lawyers. I think they worked at like a law firm. One of them was the IT guy. Uh, so I would have expected him to be there, but I didn't recognize him. Maybe they were sitting in the seats because they don't need to worry about it anymore. The train is not as crowded. I didn't look because I had to sprint for this train. Your cousin from Boston. Uh, those commercials crack me up. I had forgotten that they existed. I forgot they were a thing, and I was reminded of them by like Weibold years ago, when like in between them being a thing and them being a thing again now, and now they're back, and I love them. But anyway, yeah, I sound extra nasally today, so that also doesn't help my, you know, my crappy accent or whatever. Um, I'm looking forward to you being in my neck of the woods, Pat. Anyway, I'm also looking forward to Agility's being in my neck of the woods because he might come to the Providence Northern. Speaking of which, has anyone checked out the Providence Northern slideshow? It got posted on the community YouTube channel, which if you aren't, I haven't seen the ones with the robots. Uh, if you aren't subscribed to the community channel, I suggest you do that. If you're in the Discord, just go find one of the announcement links and go subscribe to that. We really need to get up to like 100 subs on there because I need to fix the custom URL, because that used to be my Admiral Ellis channel, and it used to actually have quite a bit more clout than it does today because they changed up the way that stuff works. Fast forwarded through, understandable. I mean, it's just a slideshow. It's not like you're, gonna get to the good part or anything. Um, Pat, I'll find you. That's a threat, by the way. Um, but in seriousness, yeah, YouTube has changed what small channels get quite considerably since that channel was actively Admiral Ellis. And I know I say that, and this channel's Admiral Ellis. It's a long story. But you can find some of the old content buried away on that channel. It's not exactly hidden, but it's not. It's put away, we shall say. You can take it out and look at it if you really want to, and you can see like 14-year-old me talking about science fiction stuff, fan fiction that I've worked on. But bottom line is, well, there's not going to be any more of that on that channel, but there will be, community stuff. The community streams go up there, that sort of thing. So if you miss one, you can see see what you missed. Hey, Shoreline. You know the answer, but have you ever done some Run 8? All right, so Run 8 and I have an interesting relationship. I'll talk about that right now. I wanted to buy Run 8 for the longest time. Whoa! For the longest time, I wanted to buy Run 8 for one extremely specific facet of the game, and that is, you might have already guessed it, or you might already know this, dispatching. And I had not been able to play Run 8 because, it's a friggin' expensive piece of software, especially if you want to get all the DLCs, which if you want to dispatch, you damn well better be able to see the whole network. So, yeah, I wanted to dispatch. Agilities was like, yeah, we'll set you up. You can be your dispatcher on our Run 8 server. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I might get Run 8. And so I just sort of sat on that notion for the longest time. Whoa, whoa. And then eventually I got to Chicago. This was, I think, April of last year or so. Maybe it was May, early May, late April, one of those things. It was like one of the first days the IRM was open for the season, too, so there was that. But my throat is so dry. I have not recovered from running to the train. Man, if you ever want to feel out of shape, try to catch a train. Uh, while wearing a coat that's too heavy and carrying a briefcase. Anyway, needless to say, I do not feel in shape today. Compounded by the fact that my allergies are murdering me and that all I can smell is dog piss and Febreze. Seriously, this isn't usually my life, but Lafayette has taken it upon himself to pee everywhere. Um, yeah, but I don't pirate stuff, so that's not solvable. I would be buying it because I don't pirate things. I would prefer to support the creator. If it's not worth my money, it's not worth having. That's how commerce works. Um, you wouldn't download a car. So, anyway, it's expensive as dicks. Run 8 is pretty expensive. And yet I was still enticed with the idea of buying it. I was thinking about, well, I'll have some money spare at some point. Spoiler alert, that never happens as an adult. Uh, get all your dumb purchases in while you're still a teenager. Even if you're a broke college student, just find money. If you have money, this is terrible financial advice, by the way. Don't listen to me. But, well, here's the thing. I would only be buying the routes. I would not be buying the rolling stock, etc. I do not care about what my trains look like because I wouldn't be looking at them. I would just be looking at the dispatch board. That's it. Uh, and so I decided that, yeah, at some point maybe I'll have the money and I'll buy Run 8. That didn't happen. At least it didn't happen right away. And they were like, oh, V3 is going to come out, so, don't, Lionel Coinbank save your money. Hey, Orion. I decided, okay, I'm not going to buy it right now. That said, when I was in Chicago with TBA, I got to sit down at his computer, and I got to do Run 8 dispatching, and it was everything I had hoped for. It was awesome. It was so much fun. And I never thought something so simple could be so much fun, but, there we are. I enjoyed the hell out of it. And even though I only got to play it for a couple of hours, maybe it would have lost its luster afterward. But, so to answer your question, in short, yes, I have played Run 8. That was my experience with Run 8. However, there's a reason my experience ends there. And that reason is Railroute. And if it were not for Railroute, I would have undoubtedly spent $200 to $300 on Run 8 and its route DLCs. And yet, that scratched my dispatching itch and I never had to worry about it ever again. Seriously, that's what changed it. That was the huge paradigm shift in my relationship with Run 8. It went from a, wow, I would love to have that someday, to, well, don't need that anymore. Overnight. Not even overnight. It was, I got the demo, and I went, oh, this is everything I've ever wanted in a video game. We're done here. Like, this cannot be topped. Run 8 will never be better than this. And so, oh my god, Pat, you do. It's one of those, see, funnily enough, I can compare it to a game that you play a lot. But yeah, I got the demo, and that was it. Railroute really fits into a very specific railroading niche, as does NIMBY Rails, right? There are your mainline train simulators. This is one of them. The other one is Railworks, and then you have Run 8, which is also sort of that, but it specializes in a certain niche, a certain thing, being very realistic and having these full size routes. And you know, Run 8 does what Run 8 does, and Run 8 is very expensive, and Run 8 is for the real hobbyist, for the person who really wants that realistic experience from the comfort of their own home without having to volunteer somewhere and work up the ranks and deal with actual humans. And that's not great. You should go and volunteer somewhere if you really want to drive a train. There's plenty of places you can do that. I'm being serious. Every place, every volunteer agency, all they want is more volunteers. This is not an exaggeration. This is not a joke. Go to your local heritage railroad and start putting your time in. If you want to ever drive something. And I know I'm a massive hypocrite. I would love more than anything to drive the Model T rail bus at the Wiscasset, Waterville, and Farmington, but I have not been up there in like a year since the annual picnic. That's not a year, but it's been a while. I need to get back to Maine. Everybody needs to get back to Maine. Even the people that have never been there need to get back to Maine. Um, but anyway, yeah. So Run 8 is pretty. I just missed the KSP discussion last time. I'm working my Resup law session. Yes, what are this? Cool. Good luck. Um, yeah, I did talk about Kerbal last time, didn't I? The whole thing with Run 8, yeah, it caters to a very specific niche, a specific part of the market. It is a very good train simulator, but it is limited in scope. It is an inch wide and a mile deep. And I can't fault it for being that. When you want to have that kind of, uh, sort of thing, right? When you want to have that sort of product, you need to be specific. That needs to be your goal. You need to pick a thing and focus in on it and make it really, really good. Whereas opposed to trains might as well be a mile wide and an inch deep. It is a train simulator as far as simulation goes, but it is a really good route builder, etc. And Railworks is probably more on the physics side of things than the route building side of things. I know it has a very capable route building tool that some people actually prefer. Those people are nuts, if you ask me. But of course, I have absolutely no bearing on the conversation because I've never used it. Now we need the locomotive design game. Yeah, no, that would be another niche. Oh shucks. But yeah, as for niches go, you have Run 8 is starting to get to be a niche game, and it is an expensive niche game. But then you have the other stuff. The stuff that is more niche, but also less expensive, because you don't need a lot of raw computational power. Railroads Online is a really good example that I probably was going to forget, but I should have got to. Roads Online and Derail Valley fill a very specific kind of niche as well, and they are sort of less broad audience appeal games than Trainz, Railworks. I would argue similar to Run 8, but with a lower price point so people can get into it more easily. And also there's less of a barrier to entry because you can play it on your own. Run 8, you kind of need a server to do anything with. And your Run 8, it's about joining this massive world and being a railroader and part of this world. Derail Valley is about you have a very small world and you can do whatever the hell you want in it. You can drive trains around and explode trains and crash trains, or you can build a successful railroad empire, or in Derail Valley, a railroad business, I guess, because you don't build anything in Derail Valley, obviously. So I like to compare those two because they're the two like first person games that I can think of. Train Sim World is just like Derail Valley and Railworks sort of came together and had a kid, but the kid, I don't know, I don't want to make fun of any specific diseases. Let's just say it's not good. It takes aspects. Train Sim World is a horse of a different color. It takes aspects of Railworks and Run 8 and Derail Valley and that sort of thing. And Derail Valley, I'm just taking the first person aspect of it, walking around your train and stuff. Point is, it does take those aspects and uh, it makes something out of them. It is for if you want to do Run 8 on your own, basically. I feel so. Anyway, opinion on canal locomotives such as the ones in Panama. Don't really have much to say about them, but the Panama Canal F40s had a really cool scheme. Um, yeah, and so I come back to NIMBY Rails, and I come back to Railroute, and these are games that pick one very small aspect of railroading. In one case, in NIMBY Rails' case, it's generally like transit planning, and you could go even farther and probably fold like mini metro into the same category. Uh, and it expounds on that, and it gives you the whole world to play with. And that is unique, and it's very cool, but it is very limited in scope. And if you're not into doing exactly that and sitting down and building a light rail system for random Ohio City number 17, uh, then you're not really going to get a lot of NB rails. Likewise, if you don't like dispatching, you will not enjoy Railroute. That's all the game is. In fact, there are two game modes that are dedicated almost exclusively to dispatching, and the third one is mostly dispatching with a side of railroad empiring. And that is the best mode, Endless Mode. But I've found that the other modes are actually quite enjoyable, particularly like the regular challenges are fine. Rush Hour I tried out. I didn't really like it. I didn't really get into it. I feel like if I gave it another shot with an open mind, I might enjoy myself. That maybe is a subject for a Wednesday video, but we won't have another one until mid next month. We'll get the vote on that probably in about 2 weeks. And maybe it'll just be another screenshot competition, which we can talk about that a little bit too. I got to dispatch on V2. V3 was not out yet. V3, I was told, would be coming down the pipeline, but it ended up taking a lot longer than anyone sort of expected. And I wasn't going to wait for V3 to take my shot at actually doing the thing that I wanted to do in the game, because I figured that wouldn't dramatically change anything, and I don't believe it did. Hi, Lafayette. Hi. Hi, were you being good? Were you being good? Were you peeing on something else? Because I swear to God, I'm going to beat you up. Come here. Come say hi to the audience. Come here. Come here. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on. Hi. 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 Yes, you missed me all day, and that is why you pissed all over the house. Is that right? Is that the reason? I know. Uh, so yeah, terrain in Nibby Rails would be a massive leap, and of course, then you can think about you can also think about adding things like uh, lock the ability to hand through dispatcher switches after they set up correctly in signal days. Yeah, so it added a bunch of cool little features. Nothing that massively changes how dispatching works, but nonetheless, quality of life improvements, realism improvements, the kind of things that you want to see out of an advancing game. Obviously, V3 was not crafted specifically to cater to dispatchers like me. There goes the dog and the cat. But you know, it's it's a thing. You know, it is something. It is a part of the game. It is a not insignificant part of the game. Uh, anyway, okay, so we need to go this way. Yeah, no, I can understand how it would be annoying to exist without a dispatcher. When you're dealing with the dispatcher switches. I mean, to that I say simply get a dispatcher. Oh wait, I've got to go on this side. There we go. Pull this way. It's the route. Alright, so, yeah, I don't really have much to say about, well, about a good number of these things. I saw NIMBY Rails when it came out, and I went, wow, that sounds really cool. That sounds like a really cool game. And I learned that it did not care about terrain, and I went, well, this seems worthless. Um, that's not to say anything bad about NIMBY Rails or its developers or anything, but because it was just about connecting the dense areas, I figured that I wasn't really going to get a lot out of that game. And I think looking back on it, I don't really have any, like, buyer's remorse or non-buy or like FOMO, you know, uh, because I didn't buy NIMBY Rails. I'm not upset about that. I think I made out okay. And so, with that in mind, we look at the other offerings. I mean, there are even still more games that um, that satisfy one very specific niche, or games that are broader in scope. One of these that actually I didn't think to mention thus far is Rolling Line. Rolling Line I have not played also, but I admittedly have nothing but praise for. It seems like a really, really well developed thing. And yes, it's a model railroad simulator, and it doesn't pretend to be anything but. But there's not an issue with that. There's not a problem with that. That is totally fine, and it's very cool. Um, once upon a time, Trainz was supposed to be more of a model railroad simulator. Instead, we got what we got, which I think what we got is better than that at the end of the day, but we got what we got. And so it strayed from the original concept of like, oh, we're going to be a model railroad building game to like just like a generic train simulator. Yeah, and having a the other underrated thing about train simulators and stuff like that is that the ability to have this collection and see all these trains and play with all these trains and not have to fork out like $600 on eBay because you found a brass model of a thing that was only, or $1,000 on eBay because you found a brass model of a thing that was only produced once, or like, oh, I would like this engine. Oh, well, too bad nobody produced it. Good luck kit bashing it or trying to find like someone who's willing to do that for you. Well, was supposed to make me a 3254 once upon a time out of a CN, like generic CN Mikado that I bought off eBay. It's still sitting in the box in my cabinet. It has never moved. I see you, Brady. And hold on, I need a water. I have already chatterboxed my life away, and we are 20 minutes in. Sorry, 30 minutes. Uh, all right, see ya, Pat. All right, well, we're losing all the regulars now. Well, I've made it to the end of where we're building also, so I don't know what that says. I actually probably want to go down with this a little bit because we're kind of just building an embankment now. We don't need to be doing this. Hey Stellar. Negative 0.05. Let's go down at like a tiny fraction. Did I just mess something up? No. Can we go down? Down towards the bottom here? Alright, so we've made it to the edge of the world. Actually, can I do something really quick? I just want to do something really quick. Hold on. Where is it? Show search filter. Wait a minute, where's the... Alright, hold on, I got it, I got this, I got this. Don't worry, everybody hold tight, I got this. Yeah, there you are, give me this. Does anyone remember the beginning of Pirates of the Caribbean 3? Or like the album cover for Point of No Return by Lafayette, do not go in the bathroom while the cat's in there, I swear to God. There we go. I want to stick this on the map, on the route somewhere, actually. We'll come back to this later. Uh, that would be that would be a valid like thumbnail if I did custom thumbnails. The Lafayette, no. Hey, no. The beginning of Pirates of the Caribbean 3 might be my favorite moment in any Pirates of the Caribbean film. And it's because of the whole, like, Jackson Purgatory with all the crabs and them, you know, going over the... Hey! Eat your own damn food! Go lay down! What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm the only person here. I'm the only person to keep you company. I understand. I understand. You miss mommy. I do too. Anyway. The whirlpool scene at the end is also a high point. I will admit that. That is a lot of fun. Alright, so we're going to need to make some topo lines. I think this is how we're going to do things. I know I might be a heathen for saying this, but while I don't think it is the best one, Pirates of the Caribbean 3 is my favorite one. I dropped off after number 4. I haven't watched them since. I know people, there's going to be people that are like, oh, you're good, you didn't miss anything. They all get so bad from there. I don't care. I don't care about what you have to say. I don't care about what the critics say. I don't care about, like, if you watch some good portions of The Realist, you will understand that my criteria for what makes a good movie has nothing to do with a lot of things. It mainly has to do with whether I was entertained by it. And like that's a totally valid that's a valid way to do things. And let me just lower this slightly. And the thing is, nothing bad about them. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be like, well, it isn't good, or it is good, or whatever. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not here for that. I'm here for whether I was entertained. And you know what? Most of the time, I've been entertained in the movies. There are very few movies that I've walked out of and gone, wow, that was bad. And there are two that I can think of right away that screamed bad movie to me. And one of them we just did a podcast on. That would be the second Space Jam. That said, there are still a lot of really funny moments in that film, I think. I I found myself laughing more often during that film than I have during a lot of other films, but I think a lot of that was because I sort of stopped expecting it to be funny. Like I just sort of expected it to be bad, and then when something funny happened, I was genuinely surprised and it got a genuine laugh out of me. But in seriousness, I think I would rewatch Space Jam not as a film, but as a compilation of funniest moments on YouTube. Uh, I would. I would. And in fact, I've looked this up because I want to. Because there are some moments in that movie that I found genuinely entertaining or funny. Unfortunately, it's just moments. The movie is at least half an hour too long. And using the remaining runtime, because it's 2 hours, if you lopped off 30 minutes of that, you get a curt 90-minute movie. That's a good length. And I think, oh man, that could have been so much better. Oh, Battleship's so good. Battleship is fantastic. Uh, yeah, Space Jam is the original Space Jam is the best Space Jam. I think there are some places where the newer one pulls one over on it, but overall it is the better movie. That saying, it's not a very good movie. I remember watching it and going, "Wow, this could have been better." Speaking of which, if you want more movie commentary from me, check out the Realist podcast. It's on the Iron Horseman community channel, which is just called the Iron Horseman on YouTube. Um, and Shoreline, that doesn't surprise me. Unstoppable, I have not watched in a long time. I should put that on the list. I should show Gloria Unstoppable. I had a thing. Uh, I subjected Madison to some really terrible movies. I had her watch 587, The Great Train Robbery, and we were actually like entertained by it. I knew what I was getting into going in, and she was, I guess, just a sucker for like cheesy kid films. I'll get to that in a second. Stellar. And so we watched that, and it was not as bad as I remembered. And I really did try, like, really hard to not tear up when they saved the locomotive at the end. Uh, which is awful, but it is just a movie for foamers. Like, what else is the takeaway there? It's not supposed to be a good movie. It's supposed to be a movie where you go, "Oh my god, they saved the train," and that's all you're there for. The 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 kids, the old guy, the dog, they're all just vehicles for the literal vehicle. I don't care about anyone in that movie. I care about the train. Um, what I'm doing right now is I'm building a little bit of a valley between our high point, which is Pan Am over here, and where we are right now. So we're going to dip down a little bit, and then we're going to come back up, probably steeper than before. This area is going to be more mountains, or hills, or foothills. And, yeah, this. Mine and Ryan's movie, every time he's moved, we've always watched the night before. Yeah, and I could, you know what, that is so in character for Ryan. I gotta say, that's 100% in character for Ryan, and I love it. Um, Certified Foamer Classic, exactly. That's, hey, Lafayette, what are you doing? Come here, come here, come here. He doesn't want to come here. I'm gonna have to beat him up. Lafayette, come here, come here, come here, come here. What are you doing? What are you doing? Were you being bad? He's afraid to come close to me. He's afraid to come close to me because he's been so bad. Lone Ranger is another one. You're just there for the trains. So good. Um, Unstoppable, you're just there for the train. Like, you are locked in for bad physics, cheesy acting, like explosions, bad plot, doesn't matter. You've got a train, and it can't be stopped. There are so many of these films that are built on the most basic premise that people will eat up because you're not there for anything else. If a movie doesn't lie to you about what you're getting into, you're gonna be entertained because the only people that'll come to see that movie are the people that are just there for that. Could you make a better film? Yeah, of course you could. That's not important. What's important is we have a battleship. That's why I like Battleship. It's not pretending to be a good movie. It's pretending to be a film that somehow has Rihanna in it and also involves the USS Missouri shooting up some aliens. And I didn't come there for anything else. And it's part of the reason. Oh, Ryan's here. It's part of the reason that I like Midway, despite the criticisms of Midway. I went there to see an old school war movie on the big screen and see battles with modern day CGI and maybe a plot, but I just wanted it to hit all the historical notes, and it does. And that is like my one praise of that movie, is it manages to cram the entire Pacific War up to Midway into the runtime of a singular movie. I don't know how long that movie is. Probably too long. Movies just keep getting longer. It's insane. But why is Space Jam 2 hours? What possibly do you need 2 hours for to tell a second Space Jam movie? Like, what? It takes like 30 minutes to get to Bugs Bunny. Uh There's a dog driving that train. Uh In no movie with the Looney Tunes should it take half an hour to get to the Looney Tunes. Um, in no movie, well, how long did it take to get to the battleship in Battleship? That doesn't matter. There's like other stuff going on. There's a whole subplot with aliens on the island and everything that is unimportant, but it gets you some of like the best one-liners and interactions in the movie, so it's worth it for that. Oh brother, where art thou? Oh yeah, Space Jam 2 is an experience. I'm glad that I'm not the only one here who's seen it now. Yeah, I listen, Ryan. If you haven't listened to the Real List episode on Space Jam and Space Jam 2, and you want to hear some discourse on Space Jam and Space Jam 2, please go watch that. It's oh boy, I've never seen Gloria so unhappy with a film before. Uh, and I wish I didn't like it. I wish I liked it less than I like it. Uh, yes, Orion, we've all seen Battle 360. I actually own it on DVD. The Porky Pig. I slammed my penis in the car door. Uh, but yeah, no. I will obligatorily say that it's a crime that CV6 Enterprise was scrapped, not saved. Yes, yes, yes. Warspite also, and like whatever other ships deserve to be saved. I mean, save them all. We should have just sold them all off to Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Pepsi gets the Soviet ships. Why did we not give the USS Enterprise to the Coca-Cola company to paint red and parade around the globe with a gazillion battle stars and also so many kills from giving people diabetes? Uh, that's like that's the only takeaway. Uh, the Pepsi Navy, did it exist? I've heard no. Actually, I've heard plenty of like I read an article that was like, well, actually, this tale is like an urban legend, and there was another deal signed that didn't end up blah blah blah. And I'm like, I do not care what the real thing. I don't care what actually happened. I care that there's a Facebook post, is an iFunny with an iFunny banner and a 9gag banner and a Reddit banner that says Pepsi Navy was the sixth largest navy in the world. Um, what the hell does soda have to do with naval ships? Well, funny you ask, because uh, allegedly the Pepsi company became the sixth largest navy in the world, which isn't accurate even in the slightest, but sixth largest navy in the world because they bought a bunch of Soviet ships, ex-Soviet ships from Russia, because after the collapse of the Soviet Union, they didn't have anything to sell. Actually, no, sorry, scratch that. It's because the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. The Soviets invaded Afghanistan, and PepsiCo, who had given the rights to distribute Pepsi in the Soviet Union in exchange for the rights to distribute a certain Soviet vodka in the United States, uh, suddenly the vodka was worthless because no one wanted to buy it because it was Soviet, and they had just invaded the sovereign nation of Afghanistan. And so Pepsi said, "Well, you got to give us something better than that because we'll just stop selling Pepsi. Or, we're going to stop selling your vodka because it's not making any money and you suck. And in exchange, you're going to stop selling Pepsi because we said so, because that's our thing." And the Soviet Union said, "Well, what if we pay you with other means?" And the Pepsi company said, "Sorry, we do not accept 14-year-old mail order brides." And that isn't real, by the way. And whoever was in charge of the Soviet Union at the time said, "Actually, we've got all these warships." Yeah, I know. Well, Russia and the Soviet Union has a habit of doing that. But what like major power in the world doesn't have a history of invading sovereign nations for various reasons? Um, yeah, that's a good question. Well, probably not so badly because I haven't seen any warships ending up in the hands of Pepsi, so probably not that badly. In seriousness, I have seen some stuff where Russian vodka was pulled from the shelves in liquor stores because of the war. Bottom line is, what Russia or the Soviet Union? I think it. No, it must have. It was Russia. It was Russia. It was not the Soviet Union. I keep saying it was the Soviet Union, but no, I'm pretty sure it was Russia because it was like the early '90s. When did the Soviet Union dissolve? I thought it was early '90s. Somebody look that up. Was it the Soviet Union or Russia that invaded Afghanistan? I mean, same 6 of one, half dozen the other. Point is, they had all these warships. Thank you. Yeah, so it was Russia, I would assume. Uh, Point is, they had all these warships, and they're still worth scrap value, even if they barely float. And they said, Pepsi, how about we just give you a bunch of these, and you just drag them over to like Sweden or whatever and scrap them and take the proceeds from that. And will that be good enough? And allegedly, Pepsi said, sure. And so they took possession of like 6 nuclear submarines, uh, corvette, a couple frigates, and a guided missile cruiser, which was by far the largest of the bunch. And then they took those things and towed them to wherever and had them scrapped. So, don't know if this actually happened. My faith in reality has been shaken. However, imagine they kept that and then Coca-Cola also had all their ex-US ships, and so now you just have uh, Coca-Cola versus Pepsi naval war. Uh, I mean, sounds like fun, right? So that's what they have to do with it, since you asked. Um, why did they die on Christmas? Was it like a Christmas gift to the rest of the world? Man, what a Christmas gift. I'm gonna die. Merry Christmas, says the Soviet Union. And most of the world goes, yay! Like, all the world goes, yay, actually. I don't think there was anyone left rooting for the Soviet Union. Uh, beverage. Yeah. There you go. There you go, Orion. Um, I'm pretty sure at the beginning of the day, the only people rooting for the Soviet Union were the Soviet Union. Like briefly, they were rooted for by the rest of the world because they were killing Nazis, but that's like a really low bar. Uh, so anyway, actually, I take that back. There was one other time where the Soviet Union was being rooted for, and it was that bridge in West Virginia. Um, which, if you're not educated on this situation, I know I've talked about it before, but there was a bridge in West Virginia, and it sucked, and nobody could use it, and it was the only way in and out of a town that didn't involve trespassing on railroad lines, and they petitioned to all like the local governments and even the U.S. government to help, and nobody gave them any responses. So instead, they asked the Soviet Office of Foreign Aid, and they jumped on the opportunity. And suddenly, the U.S. really wanted to help. So the Soviets did not get to build a bridge in West Virginia. That's, I believe, the Vulcan Bridge, maybe. Um, but it led to one of my favorite phrases to ever come out of Well, There's Your Problem podcast, which is that there are 4 branches of the U.S. government that all must exist, and for there to be a balance of power. Those 4 branches are, of course, the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the Soviet Union. And without the Soviet Union, everything in the United States goes to crap because we no longer have someone to have a pissing contest against properly. Um, Having a pissing contest doesn't work when you're buying all your iPhones from them. So that's why it didn't work with China. Uh, Thankfully, though, if we want to get political for a second, I forget. I don't know where he is. If we want to get, I mean, it's true. That is a true story. That is not like the Pepsi thing where it may or may not have happened. That is a genuine. That is how it happened. Uh, okay, Terminator. You'll be back. Anyway. There you go. So, yeah, you need to have all those things in order for the U.S. government to work properly. Because we need to be able to big dick and show off like that our citizens are better off than Lafayette, than like other people's citizens. I don't know where he is. I'm worried. And normally I wouldn't be this worried, but like I said, he's been pissing all over the house today. So I don't know, like, what's gotten into him or whatever. He probably just needs his balls removed. Um, the government needs a reboot. Have you tried turning it off and back on again? Um, no, the Soviet Union needs a reboot. We need the Soviet Union too. Oh wait, Putin's working on that. Sorry. Um, I did want to talk about, yeah, that there was a thread I was reading on the World Politics subreddit earlier, which was about the sanctions and etc. And sort of how Putin is just sort of hoping to run out the clock on the rest of the world, and hoping that the short news cycle and short attention spans of the world we live in will sort of lead to the Ukraine conflict being forgotten about in the eyes of the world, which it's true that even serious stuff this does happen to. I mean, we all have COVID fatigue after like 2 years of this, but or 3 years of this, or no, two and change. But like, there have been things that have kept that in the public eye. But like, when's the last time you heard about the Hong Kong protests? You know, that was like the most important thing in the world for 2 weeks, and then it was gone. And even I have gotten a little bit of Ukraine fatigue. I haven't been following it as closely, but I've been trying to pay attention with the developments, and I try to read, the threads that come up and get my crowdsourced bias news and sort of try to disseminate real news from that. But or distill real news from that, I should say. And so we are I was following. I used to have like the map open and other stuff open, and like constantly checking in on it. But seriously, I just don't have the time for it. I do care though, but that's the thing. Aside from COVID, Ukraine was only 30 minutes from invasion. Yeah. Um, Send in the diseases. Send in the communicable diseases. That is not. Do not actually do that. Do not do biological warfare. Hi, Mopac82. How you doing, buddy? Um, Bottom line is, Putin's kind of hoping to run out the clock on these sanctions, and hoping that time will go by and people will just start trading with him again and not sort of worry about this. Sort of like what happened with Crimea already, or with Georgia, or with the other shady crap that Putin has pulled. Remember the time he stole like Bill Belichick's Super Bowl ring? I forgot, or I forgot. I didn't forget. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Um, Also, a real thing that happened. So he's invading all sorts of stuff. He's invading our beloved New England Patriots. Shut up. And etc., etc. I need to check on where this dog is because I hear him jingling around and he's very sus. Oh, never mind. Okay, he's right there. I assume you guys, if people join the stream, they see an empty chair, they assume nothing's happening, nothing's ever going to happen. That's not the case right now. Okay, we're back. Um, yeah, Matt, that's why I said shut up. But yeah, the Ukraine live map and stuff like that. Point is, yeah, I don't think so. You got to look at it like this, and this is how it was phrased to in the Reddit thread a little bit. And someone sort of made mention of the fact that Usually, when the U.S. gets involved in a place, we don't tend to get out for like way too long. Uh, but usually we're getting involved in a place for really dumb reasons. At least this time we're doing it for not as dumb reasons. And also, we don't have any boots on the ground. We have some people in NATO bases, near Ukraine, but well, nobody is officially fighting Russia from the U.S. There are, I'm sure, all sorts of volunteers that have found their way into Ukraine. But point is, this is great for us. I mean, obviously, war is bad. War is hell. Just ask anyone from Mariupol. However, if yeah, the pregame lobby. Uh, if you wanted like the perfect scenario to A, boost our economy a little bit, B, give the defense contractors something to do after we finally decided to stop messing around in the Middle East, uh, 3, like, give the U.S. like some sort of righteous cause to hide behind, etc. Or to fight behind or unite behind, hide behind. I said hide. I didn't mean hide, but whatever. Yeah, point is same. 6 of one, half dozen the other. Like this is like the best thing we could ask for. Uh, Assuming we continue to have leadership that is favorable to Ukraine, and we continue wanting to sell them all sorts of stuff. Like, yeah. We are making bank on this. And, again, it's good for the economy anyway, because since we aren't fighting any other forever wars anymore, the defense contractors have nothing to do. So, not only do they get to sell stuff to Ukraine, they also get to show off how much better their stuff is than the stuff that everyone's been buying from Russia. Because that stuff gets sold and has been sold worldwide, and now they're watching it get dunked on. And I'm sure there's going to be some buyer's remorse in a lot of, like, non-NATO countries, or maybe even in some NATO countries that have ex-Russian or Russian equipment. Lafayette, be nice. No step on Snick. So like, yeah, this is about the best thing that could have happened. I don't really see how this is going to go poorly for us. I hope the war ends soon. I hope it ends eventually. I hope the good guys win. But I really am looking at this and going, yeah, aside from the gas thing, this is like a good help to the economy. I know a lot of the, like, on its own, obviously we're coming out of a pandemic. Well, coming out of is relative, but we are purported to be coming out of a pandemic. We have ended our forever wars, which is a good thing. I was trying to get to the economic aspects. We had the global supply chain collapse, which, that's a thing. And that sort of started driving price increases and inflation. Lafayette. Alright, never mind, he's fine. And then, of course, the war kicked off, and gases went through the roof. Gas went through the roof, and that's partially because Russia is, a huge supplier of oil and gas to most of Europe, and supply went down, prices went up. A lot of the prices went up situation is due to leftovers from COVID and the slowing of production by OPEC to keep prices from not cratering during COVID like they did previously. Does anyone remember when gas cost -$? That was a fun period. Um, and that takes some time to spool back up, but also they're just enjoying massive profits because supply is down, demand is up. Uh, this is not something that anyone can hand wave and correct. Even if all of the legislators in the United States were to push for something like this, we're still under the thumb of major U.S. oil companies and also OPEC. And you can't defeat basic economics either, but it shouldn't be this bad. And of course, this price increase on fuel is upping traffic, like transportation costs for everything, and is fueling inflation across the board. The other underrated thing is that there will be a there will be a famine. Not in the US, not in some portions of the developed world, because we have like grain stocks and stuff to fall back on, but Russia and Ukraine produce a staggering amount of grain, and none of that is getting exported now. Obviously, Russia's embargoed. Ukraine is under siege. Yes, there are going to be farmers that try to get their crops out when they're not too busy stealing Russian tanks, but uh, that is, that is a reality for a lot of the world. There is going to be a famine, and I feel like that is sort of a consequence that we haven't really thought about very much. It's like, oh yeah, food is getting a little bit more expensive. Yeah, it's a little more expensive for us. It is a little more inaccessible for a big portion of the world. It's it's gonna be nuts. So thank God, thank God you live where you live. You know, be glad you live in a place where you don't have to worry about that. Where even if it gets a little tougher to pay the bills, you're still gonna have food on the table. Because some places, some people won't. Um, yeah, I don't think that's gonna. I don't think that's it, Orion. I don't think you're. I don't think you're hitting a nail on the head with that. I'm gonna be honest. Vegans are. Yeah, vegan food is more expensive generally, but you have to remember that meat is meat because like, meat eating animals eat a lot of food. Uh, they eat a lot of grain. If we had a, I'm not advocating for this because I'm not a vegan either, but if we had a fully vegan world, food would be cheaper, like a lot cheaper. We would not have to worry about a lot of things because it costs a lot more in food to feed a cow that we can then eat than it would be to just feed the people that cow feeds. So there's a, yeah, that's the same reason why like predatory animals, like carnivorous animals, aren't things that we eat. I mean, ain't we all? We all want replicators. We all want to just have whatever we want. I did not know that a slingshot can go at speeds of 100 miles per hour. That must be some slingshot. I've never. Everyone thinks about slingshots like the like twig with the rubber bands. I've never even thought about actually making one of those. Why is it that like the idea of toys hasn't evolved since the 1950s? Is it just because of boomers? I'm willing to blame the boomers. That's the same reason we have the same 7 Christmas songs that have existed for the last 75 years. Uh, we can now broadcast holograms to the ISS? Of course we can. I mean, Tupac was a hologram like decades ago. I'm sure NASA invented that so that they could like bring Elvis back or something. Back from outer space where he lives. As a farmman who has said beef and crops, they're both expensive. That is fair. That is a good point. I'm not saying that they're cheap. I'm just saying that the amount of meat that it takes to feed a human versus the amount of like grain that it takes to feed a human. I know grain is not like we don't eat raw grain, but you get what I mean. The amount of plant that it takes to feed a human, it would be less plant to directly feed the human than it is to feed the cow or the meat animal and then feed that to the human. There's energy lost in the transfer there, like a lot. So yeah, I mean that's my point. I'm not saying that it would be magically like inexpensive. You guys don't just chop on raw wheat. Damn, is that what you do out there in Latits? Uh, that's what the Amish teach you, right? They don't have modern technology. They don't have a gas stove, right? They don't have a microwave. I see no way to turn like plant into edible plant without like modern kitchen appliances. I think the cavemen just ate like straight like maple leaf roots or maple tree roots, maple leaf roots, yeah. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Tastes like fresh beans except minus the wet. Understandable. I gave the dog a like a cheek chip to gnaw on, so that should keep him busy. You need to just get him more of those things to keep him busy throughout the day. I can't remember what it was that was like a big hit with him. And he went through it. The thing with the cheek chips is they last a really long time. I don't know what happened to like the bigger bones of his. I will say, I mean, there are plenty of plants that you can in fact eat raw, like every berry, but that's beside my point. Oh, my nose. Sorry about that. That's true. Animals taking up space. We could also reduce temporarily biofuel production. Um, Productive pasture, you have to have 2 acres per cow. Yeah, it's a lot of space. It's a lot of space. Where if you were to like have a quarter acre of gardens, well tended, you can feed yourself, and that's good. That's it. That's all you need. You need some sunlight, some water, and some plants arranged strategically in about a quarter acre. And you also still have room within that acre to live. There's an infographic that floats around that is about like this is what it would take to feed yourself. This is like your apocalypse hut situation. Although, I assume in an apocalypse you'd have more than a quarter acre to play with because everyone else would be dead. You could take whatever space you wanted. You could do the whole Fallout 4 thing and just demolish your whole neighborhood and turn it all into whatever you wanted. Um, we'll delete that. Or live in an island near an ocean. Well, yeah, okay. Fishing is a different story because that's the other thing. Fishing and hunting, because farming, even if it's agricultural, even if it's livestock, I should say, uh, you're keeping up on that supply, right? You are maintaining a certain number of heads of cattle. We're going to go with cattle because it's easy. Certain number of heads of cattle, and you slaughter X amount of them, and you breed X amount of them to keep your population more or less steady, um, so that you can keep farming. There's no profit in doing something once. Well, it depends on what that is, because if you're gonna smuggle like a balloon of cocaine in your butt, there can be a lot of profit in doing that once. Don't ask. Um, but that's not my point. You can't really do that as a date. Well, we're gonna move on from this. Um, Point is, you want to have your stock of livestock not get depleted. And the same goes for crops. I mean, it's a little bit easier because it doesn't matter if you kill them all. In fact, the goal is to kill them all. but you kill all of your plants and then you replant them the next season and then they grow and then you kill them all again. Obviously, that goes for crops that you harvest. If you have something like an apple orchard, that's a different story, but you're also not removing any of them. It's a different sort of thing. You don't need to have a continually rotating stock of plants where some are alive and some are being slaughtered and some are, it's a different game. But that's kind of my point. Um, Either way, you are in control of your stock, and yeah, it's going to get rough in the Middle East, as if it hasn't been rough in the Middle East for the last decades and decades. Um, but just saying, finally they do not have the U.S. hanging out shooting the place up, and now they're all going to starve to death instead. What an improvement! Um, so anyway, I digress. I'm trying to say that uh, fishing is not controlled. Yes, there are fish farms and fisheries; those exist, but they are not as widespread as your average cattle farm. And most fishing is just done by dropping a net in the ocean and taking home what you catch. I mean, yeah, it's regulated so that we don't have a depletion of the stock of, say, tuna, but it's not strictly monitored. You can't keep track of how many tuna you have. Yeah, the climate in the Middle East was a little bit different when they figured out farming, but I wish them the best of luck. Uh, Also, I had a cousin of mine insist to me that the reason we were able to do technological advancement is because plants grow better in the modern era because the sun burns brighter, and that's not accurate. I wasn't sure how to phrase that to him because he didn't really want to listen, but because we figured out how to farm. Uh, the climate has changed dramatically since we figured out how to farm. It's gotten colder and then it's gotten warmer, and then it got much warmer. But my point is, it's not due to the sun doing anything. Uh, One of the reasons for the Arab Spring is food shortages. Not concerning at all. Oh boy. Lafayette. See you in the bathroom. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, here. Come on, lay down. Lay down, chill out. Lay down. Um, the Sahara just sitting there. Well, yeah, we also figured out how to genetically modify plants and grew them over many generations to make them better yield. But the bottom line is we figured out how to farm, not like plants got magically better because the sun got better. Uh, we did figure out how to do a lot of things, but those came on the heels of us being able to farm. Uh, and it's not because plants got better at growing because the sun got better at showing. It's just because we figured out how to farm and specialize. And it was okay if, a really major portion of your crop yields failed in the early days because you didn't have that many people to support and because you had tons of space and people who, plenty of people whose job it was just to tend those fields. And you can, as going back to the quarter-acre thing, you can easily tend enough to feed yourself in your spare time. And yeah, this is with modern GMOs and etc. and modern technology for watering, stuff like that. But if an individual can more than feed themselves in a quarter-acre of space, imagine what an individual can do if they dedicate themselves to plowing and maintaining as much field as possible, even with just human manpower. And that says nothing of the people in not the Americas that were able to figure out how to harness animal power. CGP Grey has a great video on this. And, etc. Now, I will say this. The sun did get a little hotter over the course of our existence on this planet. However, it isn't really enough to make that kind of difference, and it sort of wibbles and wobbles all over the place. If crop yield was so tightly correlated to the output of the sun, we would have seen a massive drop-off in crop yield over the last, handful of decades, and that has not happened. It would have plunged us into a worldwide famine. It's because we're smart. I feel like almost like that's insulting to the human race. Like, we couldn't figure out how to farm. We had to wait until the earth got better. And I am strawmanning a little bit, and I'm sorry, because if I were to actually have this conversation with them, I would approach it much more diplomatically, because I did some research. I looked at, the records of solar output that NASA has, and, it, like I said, it went up and then it went down a little bit. But it didn't really change. I mean, it would be nice to compare that to a graph of crop yields, honestly, just to see if it correlates at all. I would wager maybe a little bit, but not enough to make any sort of difference. Probably within the margin of error. Because the sun's output does not change by all that much. Relatively speaking. Honestly, it doesn't change by enough to, make a difference here on Earth. Because it's really hot. It's really, really hot. The sun is really hot. And if it changes by 100 degrees Kelvin, that is still a tiny percentage of the sun's output. And we are going to shrug it off in maybe minor changes in weather patterns. The most significant thing that happens when the sun gets all screwy is it messes up the magnetosphere, and then we lose radios for a little bit. So that's also fair, I guess. I think the main takeaway is just that we stopped being nomadic. Because if you don't have to wander around and hunt and gather, then you can settle down in one place and you can build a civilization. If you're wandering from place to place, yeah, you can have a nomadic tribe, and you can have people that are in charge of stuff, but it's really hard to keep records if you have to keep carrying them around with you, and so you can't really have a functioning currency system without having an established town, or, a settlement of some kind. And without an established currency or an established system of writing, because why would you write something down if you have to carry it with you? You had language, but you did not have writing because you didn't need it, because it didn't make sense. You didn't need currency because everyone was just getting what they could survive on, and the currency was probably, let's be honest, pussy. If you brought home a 5-point buck by yourself, or the equivalent thereof in caveman, if you brought home a woolly mammoth by yourself, you were getting it from every lady in the village, I bet. and that's how you gain. That's how you measured achievement. Not too dissimilar to real life, or to modern day, I suppose. Uh, but it's just a lot harder to bring home a woolly mammoth these days, which is why we're all sad virgins. Um, but you know what? I bet if you got one, if you found a woolly mammoth, killed it, and lugged it into your hometown, man, the girls would be all over you. I guarantee you that. Um, but anyway, the other thing was, the other misconception that I heard thrown around in that conversation was that if the ice caps melt, we go into an ice age because the sea level will rise and water is more reflective than land, which is true. And it'll reflect away all the sun's rays, and then we'll plunge into an ice age. Now, I understand the logic here. However, it's missing a couple of important things, which is that the ice caps are way, way more reflective than the oceans, even. Which, yes, they are more reflective than land. Um, and also, that doesn't really change the whole greenhouse effect. Like, yeah, you'll be reflecting. Well, on balance, you'll probably be reflecting away fewer sun rays. But yet, he's he's not really responding to me anymore because I've gotten so mad at him today. Um, but we will be, on balance, I think would be reflecting fewer of the sun rays. But like, you're not getting rid of the actual like greenhouse effect, which is the main driver of climate change. You know, uh, and global warming is kind of a misnomer, because some parts of the globe are getting warmer and some parts are getting a little bit colder. On average, the globe is warming up, and it's warming up at a rate more rapid than has ever been seen in basically the history of the planet, and certainly the history of our species. Uh, like, there are 100% things that are causing that. People can argue as to whether it's anthropogenic or not, but the data doesn't lie, at least. And the Earth is getting warmer at a faster rate than it ever has been in the history of, well, recorded or recordable history. Like, dramatically. And I know it's not the number one thing to use a webcomic as a source, but if there's an XKCD about this that actually shows the time scale, like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, of temperatures on our fair planet, and you can see the graph sort of wobbles. It goes to the right, it goes to the left, it gets a little warmer, it gets a little colder, it gets a little bit more colder, and there's an ice age, and then it warms up from that, and then there's a little ice age, and then it warms up from that, and then you get towards like the bottom of the graph, like the last few hundred years, and it just jerks towards hotter, and it's dramatic. Uh, it is substantial, and you see that and go, "Oh no." It is real easy to not worry about it. It's really easy to imagine that it's not a problem, and it probably won't be really for a lot of us for our lives, just in the same way that the grain shortage will not be a problem for us here in the US generally, as long as, you can stomach not having bread as often, uh, you know, or, paying a little bit more for your loaves at the supermarket. And that's not the end of the world, right? And it's not the end of the world if it gets a little bit warmer, because most places, you're really not going to be bothered by it that much. You might be bothered by an increase uh, in like major storms. That will happen because with an increase in global average temperatures, you have more energy added to the system that is weather, and with that, you have the potential for more forceful storms because there's more energy available for that sort of thing. And that is that may affect people. more readily than global warming. Or, the average global temperature increasing, which is why people talk about climate change instead of global warming, because the average global temperature is only part of the equation. You're neglecting the storms, etc. And he's going in his crate. Does this mean he peed somewhere? I will have to go check. Uh, yeah, having a once in 100 weather event has been happening a lot over the past few decades. Yeah, and that's something that we see and we go, that sucks. And as long as it doesn't affect us directly, we sort of are able to hand wave it away. Not a thing you should be doing, but it's easy to neglect it. It's easy to not think about it. And at the end of the day, it's not like we can really do much about it as individuals besides, like, I don't know, vote for people who campaign on reforming our power grid and stuff like that, because our individual contributions to uh, pollution is pretty negligible. I mean, yes, as a group, we can change things. Don't mess with Texas. But, like, you as an individual going green will not save the planet. Uh, and I say save the planet, once again, I don't mean that the planet's going anywhere. I mean that we're all going to die. And if we don't die, it means that our, like, not, whatever, our descendants will die. Or at the very least, we will find large swaths of the globe uninhabitable, and, our overall population as a species will decline as our capabilities, as our planet's capability for sustaining life in the billions of humans is massively decreased because, well, crop yields will be much lower because it will be much harder to have areas that support crops. Uh, or we are going to need to develop crops that can survive in extreme heat and in extreme weather events. And we'll have to find the areas that are least prone to these sorts of things, which may change often. Um, Basically, my point is we should all live in giant zeppelins uh, and build floating cities like Columbia from Bioshock Infinite. Because that would be dope. I mean, obviously, if we do all meet our, uh, if we do have a, global thermonuclear war, then yeah, the resource wars are probably coming, and we have been, and maybe not within our lifetimes, but if things continue on the path they're on, it's not a foregone conclusion to say that as the Earth, as the Earth's capability to host billions of humans declines, there will be outrage and famines and probably war. Uh, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it does pay. It may not pay so much to do, but it definitely pays to care, and it definitely pays to vote. Um, you know, you don't want to have to deal with extreme weather events. You don't want your descendants to have to deal with extreme weather events. And even if you say so much as, well, I don't care about me personally, and I, am not planning on having any kids or whatever. You're here on this stream. Do you care about me? I would hope so. I will guilt trip you like a Jewish parent. Sorry, I've been watching too much of The Nanny. Uh, but no, in seriousness, it's it's about more than you. It's about me, and I have to take care with everything that I do. The fact that I have viewers as well. I have people that listen to me and hopefully look up to me and or at least tolerate me. And I think that if I can say something and it's going to impact people, then if it's going to impact people in a positive way, I should say it. And if it's not going to impact people in a positive way, I should not say it. You know, it's as simple as that. And you ought to go through life with that sort of idea in mind. And it goes beyond saying it's about mindfulness. You know, it's about care. It's about doing what is right for the sake of it being right, and not because you want to do it, not because you get a kickback from it, not because it makes you feel warm and fuzzy, but because it's right. It's not easy to do what's right, but it is right. Um, I chalk this one up to emotional warfare. Yeah. But and you know, what if right is wrong? Well, you got to do what you think is right. There, it's an interesting. You know, I know you're just sort of riffing off me, but it's an interesting thing to think about. What if right is wrong? What if the thing that you're so certain about is incorrect? And in this case, you can always point to, well, what if we made a better world for nothing? What if we move to renewable energy or even at least nuclear energy, and uh, and we make a cleaner world, and we find ways to make our crops better, and we find ways to have all our creature comforts in life and not be as polluting with them. What if you do all that and it turns out that this wasn't a problem in the first place? That the scientists have been wrong all along, and that the Earth was never going to get to a point where it couldn't support people, and like we should absolutely colonize Mars. One planet is none planet. We need more. Uh, but like and don't get antagonistic in the comments, or in the chat, please. I'm not saying anybody is, but I just want to put that thought out there, put that warning out there, and say that I need to figure out what I'm doing here. I was about to just build this as like a topo line of land, but I'm not sure if that's what I want to do. What if we're wrong? What if science is wrong? What if the scientists are wrong? What if they've got it wrong? I won't say what if science is wrong, because science, that's not really a functional statement. But what if the people are wrong? What if the scientists are incorrect? And yeah, exactly. Yeah, give billionaires more money. They need it. Um, and so say, what if? Well, then we've made a better world for nothing. But it's still a better world. I don't think we lose anything by going there. And you can talk about the individual things that you like and hold dear. Okay, I like my gas car. I do too. I've got two Volvos that I take care of and love very dearly, and they run on dead dinosaurs. Well, dead trees, really. But they're not exactly the most environmentally friendly pieces of kit, that's for sure. But I love them all the same. And if I had to give them up, that would suck. I would not enjoy that. Would it be for the better good? Or the greater good? Yeah, possibly. Possibly. Who am I to say? You know? Um, okay, so we're going to go up probably fairly steeply from here, I think. Um, well, I think por qué no las dos with the space thing. But, there's always the non-zero chance that we don't get our affairs in order back home. And we have no choice. I feel like we should be building a backup plan. I don't think we should be strapping ourselves to this planet and saying, well, we fix it or we die, because we may not fix it. Uh, and that is a grim sort of thought and outlook. I understand, but I think that we can be investing in more than one thing at a time, and it's very smart to do so. It's enterprising of us to do so. So, all right, there's our topo line. Notice how it's a little bit under the point 0, the point 8. Hi, good boy. What were you doing? You got schmutz on your forehead. Hi, good boy. Um, yeah, I mean, backup plans are good. I'm just gonna say that. All right, all right, all right, all right. Bring it back a little bit. I think it's important to have discourse about these sorts of things. I don't want to fight the other day. But right, now we got to do what we just did again. Now space is cool. Space is fun. One planet is none. One copy is none copy. One planet is none planet. We should totally be doing all the above. There's really no reason why we can't. Um, until we start a war against Mars, you know, Mars attacks. Oh, that's got to be a movie that we talk about. That's got to be a movie for the realist, I think, in the future. Um, or what if we are the aliens? I'm gonna put on my big hair for a minute. We're gonna go all ancient aliens here. What if we are the aliens? Uh, I think we have enough manpower and brain power on this planet that we could have people that are working on both the move to space solution and the save like life on Earth as we know it solution. Um, I'm rooting for both. I have high hopes about one and not so high hopes about the other. Uh, but I'm rooting for both, and I'm voting for transit. So yeah. Uh, the other thing is, I wanted to dig into something really deep here that I never get to talk about, which is morality, right? And before anyone starts to crucify me, because I'm probably gonna say some real crazy stuff, uh, bear with me here because it's more of a thought exercise than anything. And I am in no way advocating for any of the things that are currently against the law. I'm saying that not only as a boilerplate to protect myself from aforementioned law, but I'm also just saying it because it's the truth and I don't want to sound like a whack job who thinks that murder is okay. But let's talk about murder. Because there's no such thing as morality. There's no there's nothing religions aside. I was going to say there's nothing set in stone, and then I had a mental image of Mohammed, of Moses carrying two tablets. Religion aside, there is nothing set in stone that says what is good and what is bad. We value our own lives because we want to keep living, because we fear what happens afterward. Um, so we have deemed that things like murder are bad. Uh, and collectively, we all tend to agree that things like murder are bad. But it's only bad because we said it's bad. There's nothing about life or even living or even us humans that means that says we're good. Hell, if you look at something like a national park in the pristine of nature, and then you look at something like Gary, Indiana, uh, you might even easily say that humans are bad and that we're bad for everything and we ruin everything we touch, which would be a fair assessment if you tend to like nature. Um, but like, what does that mean then? What if humans are bad? Does that mean it would be good to kill them all? To kill us all? Is that the thing that should be happening? I mean, I went to engineering school. I would like to die, but that is beside my point. uh, it's, loosely, my point is that nothing is good or bad other than what we decide is good or bad. We have had many societies throughout history with many different moral codes, and you better believe that most of the time, most of those people within those societies agreed that those things were good. Otherwise, they wouldn't have those moral codes. Um, yeah, at the end, it was because somebody with a lot of power decided what the laws were going to be, but usually they reached those not because they were unpopular opinions. Uh, I do think dying sounds great. Uh, yeah, no, and that's it's a point that has been made. Thank you, Wyatt. It's a point that has been made in a lot of media. I mean, everything from, well, from various robots take over movies being, oh, with the flawed premise we have to protect humanity or protect some such thing, therefore we must destroy humanity so that humanity can no longer suffer if they're all dead. And I agree with that. But uh, not a thing that we should necessarily employ in real life. But yeah, that's the I guess I got to my point way faster than I expected to. I think my point is that there's no such thing as morality, and that morality is what we decide it to be, and right is what we decide it to be. Yeah, it sounds like Thanos with extra steps. Yeah, I mean that's kind of it, right? I mean, Thanos is about, basically a culling to make the universe continue to be livable, which is a flawed premise in its own right, but not important. Uh, it's just, it's just that you can go about any situation and think that you are right, but unless there is a factual disagreement, and even if there is a factual disagreement, because interpretation of the facts is still a thing, it's it is detrimental to go through life assuming that you are right. I believe, and yeah, it leads to a lot of self doubt to always be doubting yourself, but it's almost wrong to launch into any sort of discussion or debate assuming that you are right and without the openness to change that position. And everyone here, everyone listening, I'm sure is going, yeah, that's what the other people in the debate are thinking about. No, I'm talking about you. You're wrong. Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. I'm wrong. A lot. More than I would care to admit. We're all learning. We don't have the whole picture. And that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. As long as you admit it. Move on. And learn. And get better. It's okay. Sometimes I've given in on arguments because I didn't want to fight them anymore. And then later realized that I should have given in because I was wrong. The other person had a good point. Sometimes I've given in because I came to that realization that the other person had a good point. Sometimes it was a mix of both. Sometimes I fought things to the end when I probably shouldn't have. Sometimes I didn't fight things to the end when I probably should have. Sometimes I just didn't want to fight. Nobody's perfect. We're all going to have those moments. We're all going to have incidents where we're wrong. And sometimes, even if you don't feel like you're wrong, sometimes it's best to apologize anyway. Because you still might be. Because when someone's upset, like genuinely hurt, sometimes it doesn't matter who's wrong. Sometimes wrong is something that you can sort out at a later date, at another time, when everyone's thinking straight again. There's a bigger picture than whatever conversation we're having, or whatever conversation you've had, or would like to have. People can learn, and they can learn through ways that aren't you. Sometimes all it takes is a nudge in the right direction. Sometimes all it takes is the spark of conversation for someone to start investigating, to wonder if they're wrong. Sometimes that doesn't happen right away. Or does it matter if nothing productive is done by sorting out who was wrong? Yeah. And at the end of the day, when you get into a discussion, whether or not you're right or wrong, you should always check. You should always fact check yourself. You're the best fact checker you've got. You should go out of your way to look for things that say you're wrong, and look at them and think, is this right? Am I wrong? It's okay to be wrong. If I had had that discussion with my cousin and I had looked up those NASA data points and saw that, yes, the sun actually has been getting hotter for the last 10,000 years, 30,000 years, based on the records that we can have from stone samples and ice cores, then I would say, wow, maybe that does have some bearing that I had never considered. I probably wouldn't cede my thought entirely, because I understand how agriculture works, at least I think I do. I remember my history courses, and I remember the birth of civilization, what I have learned of it, and it all still seems to make sense to me. But maybe there are other factors that I hadn't considered. Maybe there are other aspects that I had never thought about, never even realized could be aspects. See, we live in a world where we know what we know, and we know what we don't know, but we have no idea what we don't know we don't know. The vastness of the things that we cannot even imagine that we don't understand is beyond our wildest dreams. And I face this every day. Not because I work in engineering, but because I hang out around a lot of people who know a lot of things about a lot of things that I don't know a lot of things about. And I'm talking about everybody here. I'm talking about everybody here and in the Iron Horsemen and beyond. In about an hour, I will be recording Mashinki with Heiss and Leighton and Weibold. I was graciously invited along to this session. Now, the thing to know about them, if you haven't watched the Railroad Tycoon videos, is that, well, in some ways they might as well all be the same person, but they all worked together at the Colorado Railroad Museum. And to that end, they have a lot of knowledge on a lot of things that have to do with steam engines, steam engine restoration, steam engine operation, history, and of course their local Colorado history, including that of the Rio Grande. And a whole host of other things that they know a lot more about than I do. And so they have their discussions, and I sit back and I wonder how much more there is to the things they're talking about. And I throw in a joke, or I throw in a side word that may be relevant and maybe not. And I sort of bask in this towering spire of information. Information that I could not hope to ever take in and properly understand. But at the end of the day, I know that if I need to know something, if I have a question that needs to be answered, As long as I'm surrounded by people that know more than me in those fields, I can ask and I can get an answer. Part of part of humility is knowing not just when you're wrong, but knowing when you don't know if you're wrong. Knowing when you can't know what is right. Knowing when there's someone that knows more than you that can answer those questions. I have that all the time. I just mentioned an example. Here's another one. Tyler is my co-host on Locomotive Royale. I didn't ask him to be there because I like him. Well, I do like him, but that isn't why I asked him to be there. I asked him to be there because he knows a lot. Because he has an intrinsic feel for what is better in a locomotive after learning a lot more about locomotives than I know or probably will ever know. I think I do a great job on this show because I can talk a lot about a lot, even though I don't really know a lot about a lot. I feel like I have just a cursory enough, in, you know, pile of information that I can pull from, and I can make inferences, and I can have a discussion, and sometimes I'll be wrong, and sometimes I'll be right, and at the very least, I'll at least be able to walk through my thought process with everybody, because at least I can have a thought process. Some people, they don't need that thought process. On a given question, they already know the answer. On a given curiosity, they've already figured it out. They've already satisfied their curiosity. Tyler is so helpful because he has access to things that I don't even know where to begin with. He has access to diagrams and statistics that I don't know where I would find them. I can't even begin to wonder where I would find them, where I would look, how I would dig these things up. Doing the trading cards has been a window that has been opened to me into being a part of preservation in a way that I don't think really many other people are, but there are plenty of other people that are part of preservation in a much more normal way that can, that can help fill in my gaps because they know more. And Tyler's one of them. Tyler, I can ask questions, obscure questions, and he has an answer. Questions that I did not possibly think could have an answer, or because someone was wrong. Yesterday, I was looking through the proposed trading cards for the second batch, and I went through some of those on air here. One of them is UPDNG, or DSPNP, 113. And I did some research because I wanted to get a feel for what I was looking at, and I found that there was no such thing as UPDNG 113. But upon asking this, he had an answer immediately, which was that the UPDNG things were lettered for it, even though they were not officially part of it, legally part of it. So you would more easily find a picture of 113 in UPDNG than you would in other liveries for railroads that it actually properly belonged to. And I found that interesting. And he was able to answer that immediately, without hesitation, without really much research, at least to my point of view. And I was astonished. That's you probably have come across this shenaniganry then, Mopac. What exactly is Union Pacific? I think it's Union Pacific, Denver, and Gulf, something like that. It is one of these companies that I believe eventually became part of the CNS, or their locomotives were sold off to the CNS, something like that. Here's one of those things. I don't really know. Tyler would know off the back of his hand. He would have an answer for you yesterday. I don't know. I know it's just one of these 3-foot lines. It's smashed somewhere in history between the DSPNP and the Colorado and Southern. I don't have any more information than that. I wish I knew more, but I don't. It's just one of those big question marks, these big gaps that I sit here and I go, well, I don't know. Maybe it is this way, and maybe it's this way. Who knows? Man, I am running out of like talk. Oh man, I'm gonna need to have a lozenge before I go on with Heist and the gang. So yeah, I wonder if Heist's video contributed substantially to the trading card sales. I still need to talk to him and Tyler. Sure, was sold off and incorporated into the Georgetown Loop, and I see. I see. Well, see, you're digging into this, and you still have more of an answer than I do, and you asked me the question. Also, this is why chat replays on, so that I don't have to read this stuff out loud, because I'm still missing a word or two on the left and the right. So I have to make some inferences unless I'm going to click off for every comment. Most of the time I can figure it out. But, you know. Alright. There we go. We are like 2/3 of the way there. Yeah, we're not going to finish this in time. This is the biggest swath that I've done, and I still think this is easier than the alternative. To get a good result, to get like a real like standard result. Okay, ignore that. That's somebody joining Iron Horseman Radio. I would bet that it's Hemlock, and they saw. Nope, never mind. I wonder who that was then. Everyone's favorite locomotive, excluding common, popular, or famous engines. Well, I don't know what counts as famous. Does the New Haven I-5 count as famous? Because I love that friggin' thing. Favorite locomotive, excluding famous engines. So I'll exclude anything that survives, I think. Anything that's like been in any documentaries, etc. There's no light here on a different call. So, well, okay. I guessed it was you, but it wasn't you because the person immediately hopped out. Whatever, unimportant. Um, so, man, I don't know what's famous and what isn't. Oh, the Terriers. Um, favorite British locomotive. I don't know, whatever Edward is. Oh, the Furnace Railway K2. And the thing is garbage, though. It's been to a Royale. I have a soft spot for the New Haven I-4 Pacifics. Those things are neat. The main Central 2662s, even though they weren't very good, well, they didn't do what they needed, what the B&M needed them to do. But I've told that story before. I'm trying to dig up stuff that I have a soft spot for. I mean, anything D&H, any D&H Alcos do it for me. Hmm. The the Boston and Maine moguls. That probably goes without saying. Partially because of their history. The Union Freight Railroad box cab climaxes that trundled down Atlantic Avenue in the middle of the night in Boston. What a wonderful thing. Maybe a certain Canadian Mikado. I think that's famous. um, I'm trying to think because everything I can think of is probably too famous. Anything Uinta, well, maybe not the rod engines. Uinta Shea 7. Uinta Shea number 7, the only Shea built outside of Lima. I'll take that one. And I mean, if the Uinta 062s don't count as famous, I'll take those too. There are some more famous locomotives that I don't really like for various reasons. I would say anything PRR is too famous to take for this whole thing, and yet the only thing people remember from the New York Central are the big engines. So Does the Q2 count as famous? I feel like most people won't know what the Q2 is. Now make trading cards of the... Now make trading cards of them. Why no soft spot for any 2-foot? I consider 2-foot way too famous to even mention. Like, yeah, obviously I love the 2-foot. Like, I can't bring them up because I love them too much. I feel like they're the thing that everyone needs to know about. I don't feel like they are not famous enough to be mentioned here. Yeah, engines that Ellis loves coming to a trading card pack near you. I mean, I like some of the weird stuff that's showed up to Royales. Oh man, I love the Torturer. Excuse me, a Dutch 484T that's hand fired. Um, so yeah, I don't think you would complain if you're in a 2-foot. Okay, fair. Fan of the Panama Canal engines. Said no to my dream car. We don't have the money, and neither do you. Okay, well, in fairness, they don't have the money, and neither do you. But like, maybe see if you can like finagle something with the guy, and they'll put it aside for you. Maybe, and then just like work on the side. I went to a Grange meeting last night, which is why we had that screenshot competition, which I still haven't talked about, by the way. And the one of the things was that we've got like a boatload of money in the bank, and new members were asking, "Hey, how does the Grange get funding?" Uh, and the answer was, well, mainly through rent of the Providence Northern Model Railroad Club, which occupies the same building, but also just due to donations and membership dues, and and I really held back. I already made some dumb jokes during the course of that meeting, and these are relatively serious affairs. Yeah, sometimes it gets a little bit rowdy, but not nearly as rowdy. Well, I wouldn't say rowdy. Also, I just spit. It's disgusting. Um, I would say that sometimes there are a couple of jokes that are cracked, but really, it does not get rowdy. People do not get up in arms about anything because it's really a subdued group, and most of the guys are just members of the Model Railroad Club that are members of the Grange so that the Grange continues to exist so that we can maintain our lease in the building. And, like, ooh, I gotta get my daily. Flegel just went into Warthon and made me think I gotta get my daily. And, like, I had been holding back a couple of jokes, and the one I really wanted to make was like, well, and I have been standing on a street corner downtown, and all the proceeds from that endeavor are going to go directly to the Grange. And I really held back because I feel like there are some people that would not have found that funny. Uh, but again, because I was trying to be, well, I'm the secretary of the Grange, and I was trying to have a little bit of decorum. Uh, which, speaking of which, I think I saw my second prostitute ever, like last week or something in Central Falls. Haven't seen one downtown. Saw one in Oneyville Square with some of the rest of the horsemen during Operation Apollo. And I saw this one on the side of the road in Central Falls. So, come see beautiful Central Falls. Come for the meth, stay because you sold your car for meth. Um, hey, pretty good. How's it kicking, Bender? You missed all the philosophical and like science and political stuff. We're on from that now. We're going to talk about the screenshot competition, which was awesome. So, if anybody has like opinions, thoughts, I know it's been circulating a little bit, but like if anyone has a thought that they've been holding back about the screenshot competition, go ahead and say so now. That was recorded in advance and not edited, of course, and not streamed because it was recorded Tuesday night and released on Wednesday. Um, Smell like cheeseburger. Else was like Soviet Russia, and then life is weird, and then I saw a prostitute today. Yeah. Uh, we talked about, we hit like all the check boxes today. We talked about the Pepsi Navy. We talked about the Wiscasset Waterville and Farmington, albeit briefly, and then again briefly. We haven't talked about how Edaville's on sale. Hey, speaking of 2 foot, Edaville's on sale. Does anyone want to go halfsies with me on a theme park? I will mortgage my house a third time. Uh, yeah, go. Let's get. Welcome back, seller. We're gonna buy Edaville. That's what you've come back to. But in seriousness, congratulations to Ryan for taking the prompt in a unique direction. Uh, and then there were a lot of things that I wanted to say about a lot of things, but I don't remember whose screenshot is whose. The pickle train, I feel like I rated too highly. I know I mentioned that during the thing. It was a really well composed screenshot. Well, because it's for sale, that's why. Because 2 foot is what the people want, Stellar. Uh, I think it was rated too highly because it could have been any. Like, the scenario was not clear from the get go. There were a couple of other ones that showcased steam and diesel motive power together to make the transition a little bit clearer. And yet, I really did fall in love with sort of the artwork of the Pickle Train one. And of course, it's called the Pickle Train. How can you say no to that when your girlfriend loves pickles as much as Gloria does? So, you know, can't really go wrong there. Okay then. Listen, we have oaths, we must abide by them. Uh, but either way, I think it was a great screenshot. And yeah, the other thing that I failed to mention during the course of the video that really stuck out to me afterward, as I was just sort of laying in bed and thinking about it, we had 3 different Reading submissions. Also, I understand that the PA or the FA model was not as old as I thought it was. I guess those diesels, they just really look low poly because they're just smooth. I don't know. It looked like a meh model, but I'm looking at it again. I looked at it again and I went, oh yeah, you know what? That is a relatively new model, isn't it? Like, it looks good enough. It doesn't look like incredible, but it looks good enough. All right, we'll get the corners done. Oh, excuse me. We'll do the corners later because. Oh, excuse me, God. Also, I may wrap this up early for the sake of going to that stream. We got 3 Reading submissions. Why is the Reading on everyone's mind? I'm guessing it's because of 2102, which is understandable. But, like, it's like a pastime of the Iron Horseman to hate the Reading sometimes. And like the Iron Horseman Discord server, I should say, unless your name is Matt. Or Chris. Or Vert, I guess. I don't know. There are some other there are too many Pennsylvanias in there. I noticed that Brock left, which made me sad. But anyway, the the Pennsylvanians came out in full force at support of the Reading. We had 3 of those. I don't know why that didn't like register in my radar. The third one registered with me with relation to the second one because they both had the FAs in them. But it didn't click until later that the very first one I checked was the Rusty T-1 one, and like that makes 3. It's crazy. I did see the screenshot you decided not to submit, which I thought it was pretty good. It's another one of those. I liked the setting for it because that is I can't remember the name of the station, but you know, over in near San Francisco. That's the station in Oakland, right? And that I have a certain like Modesto. Okay, I have a certain fascination with the similar station, the one I maybe think of where you're just like parking in the road. Um, Either way, yeah, I think that would have gotten a decent score, maybe like a middling score, because it wasn't abundantly clear what was going on either, and it's not. I don't want to play the comparison game because I don't want to make anybody feel bad, but I think it would have gotten a fairly middling score. I think you could have done some work on that one to make it a little bit better. You know, I'm a sucker for tweaking the weather, for tweaking the background a little bit, for I mean a higher angle. I know I talked about that with a few people's that they shot from a very low angle, and I know that's really easy to do in Trainz. Uh, but people sort of fall into that trap, and then you end up taking a picture as if your cameraman's lying on the ground. Oh, hi, baby. Uh, we're just talking about the pickle train, your favorite. And that isn't necessarily realistic, but it is tough. The thing you can do, though, is use one of the built-in Trainz cameras. You know, one of these doodads, which I don't know how to use, and set those up to be your camera, and then switch into the appropriate mode, and whatever. Okay, I'll call you, but it's gonna have to be brief. Well, I miss you too, but I have to go and get on with Heisen now. I need to figure out how to make my throat not hurt so bad. I'm gonna be probably very quiet during this upcoming stream with Heis. Um, I miss you too. Uh, but I like what you were going for. What we didn't have. I mean, as Ryan screenshot aside, I don't believe we had one of these major passenger terminal shots. Mostly because, the last days of Steam were often relegated to pretty meh duties. I mean, shunting, some either very heavy or very light freight duties, uh, that sort of thing, or just living out your days hanging out in the shop waiting for like a farewell to Steam excursion to happen. And it is unusual for railroads that had, you know, medium large or large, not extra large, steam traction running their passenger trains to have those passenger trains run by that steam power up until the end of Steam. Now, of course, you can dial it back further. It would have been interesting to see a something about the end of steam motive power on the 20th Century Limited. I think that would have been a cool topic. But this is sort of a tangent of that, and I think it would have been. It was a different take than we had seen generally. Yeah, you had the pickle train for other passenger duties, and you had the farewell to Steam excursion from Brian, but I think you would have presented something unique. And next time you haven't got anything to lose by submitting. There's nothing wrong with submitting a screenshot that doesn't get in the 80s, even, or the 90s. Nothing gets in the 90s really, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's not about winning. It's about making something. And yeah, I guess if you didn't enjoy making it and you're not going to enjoy having it out there, you can't, whatever. But in the end, you showed it to the world anyway. I wish you had put it in the competition. I would have liked to talk about it. And I made these slightly too far apart. I had 20th Century Limited and came running. Yeah, no, that's understandable. That's an understandable reaction. Well, we had the screenshot contest recently. Came out yesterday. And technically should have come out this morning, but I did say it would come out last night. The thing is, right, I'm kind of in a conundrum, right? Because it's called a Wednesday video. But it fills in, I didn't like it, I didn't like making it, I didn't want to put the effort in submitting it. Okay, well, next time give it a shot anyway. Be a little more positive, my man. You had that creative drive to make the thing. You decided to make the thing, Nobody twisted your arm, nobody told you you had to. You decided to make the thing. And I think that speaks more volumes than what you're saying right now. Especially considering you also shared it in the end. It doesn't cost anybody anything to submit. But at the end of the day, you do what makes you happy. Uh, and if you were happy because you didn't submit, then that's fine. At any rate, um, yeah, I thought at the end of Steam on like a major name train would have been a decent candidate. But of course, we've got all sorts of other twists that were brought on, well, other eras, other locations. We had the Farewell to Steam, we had the Steam Out of Action, we had the Scrapyard, we had the Pickle Train, we had I don't know, we had quite a smorgasbord. We had 13 different selections. We had that weird one, um, and then we had the one that was submitted from Trainz Mobile, the one that was submitted from an earlier version of Trainz, I think it was '06, which again pretty or one that was submitted from Tane. Well, one that was, yeah. There were some older ones. Um, and that I thought, like I said, was pretty impressive that, you know, you went through the effort to make something even though you knew it wasn't going to get first place, you did it cuz you wanted to. And that's the spirit I want. Because yeah, at the end I declare a winner. I say this person got the most points, but it's not really about that because I'm not ordering them first, second, third, fourth, fifth. I'm not saying wow this one sucks so it deserves to be on the bottom, because I'm not trying to compare them specifically. I'm just trying to compare them on their own merits, and I'm trying to uh, look at where they stack up against their peers. In some respects, of course, I have to, but in other respects, I want to know just what went into it. There are ones that were fairly simple that blew me away. Milky's, for example, fairly simple shot, not really a lot going on there. It's 268 and a cameraman and some stock cars. And then I read the notes, and he says, I got a demo of this area, and then I carved out the lake using old topo maps. And I'm sitting there going, this man is insane. And that's the coolest thing I've heard tonight. And I think it remains the coolest thing I had heard. And it had nothing to do with how the screenshot looked. It was just about the process. And that's the part that really blows me away a lot of the time. Yeah, I see the screenshots and I think, wow, this is gorgeous. Usually, I see a screenshot and I think, okay, yeah, look at this. Look at this beautiful picture that someone put together for us. Someone made the effort to put together a scene, put Trainz in the scene, position this camera, do whatever they were going to do. But sometimes that creation goes above and beyond the final result. The parts are far, far greater. And that is sometimes the coolest stuff, because the efforts to which people will go to create a product that they want, because surely you could have got the same score with a lot less effort, but the amount of effort that was put in to create that product is staggering. The amount of unique effort too, not like, oh, I crafted a bunch of custom assets for this. That is impressive. This is a different kind of impressive. So the Modesto Depot on the DLS, I bought the SSW L1. I'm doing Modesto, I gave up halfway through. Well, that's a shame, man. If you need encouragement, I got your back. I want to make sure that, I want to see people follow through on stuff. It's satisfying to finish something, even if you're kind of bothered the whole way through. It is about finishing that something. And yeah, sometimes it's about the journey. Sometimes it's about the friends we made along the way. But sometimes something can be a grueling slog, and then when you're done with it, you look back and you look at it and you go, wow, job well done. Or at least, job done. Favorite new subreddit is I did the job, boss. And I want everyone to be able to feel that with their screenshots. No matter what rating they get at the end of the day, I want to give people as positive reactions as I can to looking over their works for the first time. And I want to take what take what's given me, take what's given to me, and judge it for its merits. And I hope I can do that in an unbiased way. And honestly, I kind of wish that I could do it uh, without the Discord names. But I really want to verify the submissions and apply them with who did it. I suppose I could always not scroll down to the bottom. I will try not to. Well, yeah, but then people's things, like the names of people's files, that's tough. Okay, I've been thinking about doing that. I don't really have a good solution for doing it yet. Oh, wow, nice. I assume model. Uh, anyway. Yeah, that's... Sometimes it's about the journey, sometimes it's about the destination. Sometimes it's about finishing it and looking back and going, there we go. Have someone else present you the information. Then I have to rope somebody else in to do it. And that is harder than you might expect. The thing with the Wednesday videos is it's easy. It's supposed to be stuff that I can do pretty much on my own. I don't really have to want to... I really don't want to have to get a second person on to be my assistant with regard to these things, because this is something that I'm doing on my own for the Discord. But that is a good way to do it, and I'm probably going to let that idea soak for a little while and just see if it can happen. The other thing is, it is a substantial time commitment. I asked Gloria if they would want to join me for the judging, and they just said, well, I don't really have anything. Like, I wouldn't really have anything to add. And I figured, okay, yeah, I get it. To organize it. Yeah, but even still, someone needs to get on there and organize it. And I keep the submissions open until right before. I'm not going to ask why you have 8. Unless you're building a shrine to them, which would be a little weird. But you know what? People have built shrines to weirder stuff. People have built shrines to weirder people. Nope, somebody else just joined. Somebody joined the radio. I'm going to have to mute that tab. When I go and do this thing. Just so it doesn't keep spooking me. Especially when I'm already in a Discord call with other people. This I'm doing alone. I know that any bloop is from not me. You know, it's not relevant to me. It's not important. Alright, and I've smoothed that out right there. Alright, now we're up to here. We still need to build some hills and stuff, but this is where we're at. I'm going to close this a little bit early. I'm sorry, folks, but I need to let my voice recover a little bit before I do another stream. And I'm already getting a little bit weary. But anyway, I'd like to thank everyone for joining. Following along, suffering through the political, the non-political, the apolitical, the B-political, and of course the D. And hope to see you all next week. This is the Admiral, signing off.